All right. So I think you and I are live now.
Happy
I hope
days.
so. So
1 minute late. That's all right.
that's all right. Yeah. In these day and age, that's good enough. I don't know that I've ever been on a Zoom that's been quite on time with the people pouring into the room at the last minute.
No, certainly not. I think all the ones we've done, you just drop in 5 minutes late, and then that gives everyone time to join. So I think we're doing all right.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. This is Rab McEachern from the Bruichladdich Distillery. For those of you who don't know, but let's face it, if you're here, you probably do know.
Some of you might.
Yeah, I didn't even ask permission. I just winged it. I put it on Friends of Bruichladdich. I knew Derek would give me his blessing. So
I saw the invite and I thought, oh well, looks like I'm doing that. Fine, okay. It's actually funny because as a North American, you actually pronounce McEachern better than most Scottish people. So that's quite a talent to get that first time.
Oh, good. That's good because I always tell people that a few years ago I was in a liquor store in Los Angeles with my son, who was 7 at the time, and he yelled from across the liquor store, "Dad, the Bunnahabhain's on sale!" And the guy that worked in the liquor store sort of did this double take. I was very proud of my son at that point.
I think I was 18 before I could pronounce Bunnahabhain, maybe 21. But yeah, that's pretty good going.
How would most people pronounce it there?
Oh, I get all sorts. McEachern, McHern, McCairn. I just answer to anything now, as long as it's not a profanity. Although most of the time in Bruichladdich it is a profanity, so I just have to answer to it. But yeah, it's I get a lot, but that's okay. I can deal with that. That's why I shortened it to Rab. So Robert McEachern was this big long. Just Rab's fine. Just get us out of the way.
Yeah. It's funny. I went to, the part of my last name should be SCH. It's the German word. It means black. And it somehow it got Americanized. The CH got dropped somewhere along the line. And where I'm from in Pennsylvania, there's loads of people with spelling my way. But nowhere else, and even when I've been going to Germany, they don't know what to do with it, and so I've long since given up on trying to correct people. I just roll with it.
Yeah, I don't take offense. I just go on with it.
So I can't tell where you are right now. Is that a virtual background or is that
no?
real?
This is my wee office loft. This is actually my lockdown project. So we built over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, myself and my partner, and we built this house on Islay, and this was an attic up here. And during lockdown, we had a lot of time on our hands, so I needed some space to work from home because Bruichladdich, we started working from home really early on in the whole lockdown scenario, the situation. So we were kind of end of February, so I needed a space to work away from the 4 children that I have running about down the stairs. So yeah, I built this little kind of loft attic space up here, so I could put all my toys in my workspace and escape for a few hours a day. So
I think I saw on your social media, I saw it coming together.
I kept. Yeah, I thought if I keep putting my progress on Instagram, I'll keep doing it because folk will be expecting me to keep putting little updates and stuff on. So that sort of kept me kind of ticking along with it. If I'd just been doing it myself, I would have lost interest after 2 weeks. I had 3 injuries doing it, and I almost gave it up over them. So I cut my finger, almost cut the top of my finger off, and then the same finger shortly after I shot a nail gun through, and then I smacked my head quite badly and had to get stitches in my head. So I had to keep motivation going and continue doing it. So showing people and stuff just gave me that wee kind of kick in the arse to keep going with it.
That's funny. I've used the lockdown to try to learn to read. I used to play guitar poorly as a teenager, so I picked it up again and discovered that both of those things are well intact. I can still play it very poorly. And the other thing was I wanted to, I've never known how to do video editing. I'm a director, so I can work with an editor and tell them what I want. But as far as the actual computer software, I never really had done. I just sat in the back of the room. And so I got certified on a number of different editing platforms now, only to discover equally that I would rather sit in the back of the room and have someone else do it.
I think it's funny. I think so many folk are going to come out of this whole lockdown thing with new skills that they just would never had time to do. You know, in the UK, I don't know what the situation is in the US quite so well, but in the UK, there was the furlough scheme the government introduced, so a lot of people kept their jobs, and the government essentially paid 80% of their wages to stay at home for, you know, a good few months, up to a year in some cases. So all these people had all this time to learn new skills. Unfortunately, me, I'd never done any joinery or anything like that. I just winged it with this, but and then I spent the rest of the time building Lego, and that was it basically. But
my wife's uncle is trying to teach himself Gaelic.
Mm.
That's a heavy lift.
Scottish people struggle to learn Gaelic.
Yeah.
Even when it's like every day in school, it's still difficult. It's a difficult language. It's quite a limited language because I think only round about it's something like 60 or 65% or something of the English language is actually covered in Gaelic. So it's quite limited, it's quite difficult to do. So nice skill to have though. I wish I had it.
Well, I had the Duolingo and I started looking at it, and then I gave up after a few weeks. You know, and it's funny because I lived in Glasgow, and I never needed to know Gaelic there, but I did need. That took me a few weeks just to learn. I couldn't understand people the first 2 weeks I lived there.
Glaswegian.
And then 3 years later I moved to Ireland, and I got a job there as a bouncer, and I spent most of my time alone. And so I was trying to learn Gaelic there, just because, you know, in Ireland, like everything is written in both languages. So you can kind of just sit on a bus and sort of, you know, the Gaelic I remember from Ireland is like the things that were written on a bus, like no ke tobac, no smoking, you know, or, you know, Slanoelia, you know, there's a couple little phrases that were all things that were written in buses that those are the things I remember. Actually, Slanoelia was written on the bottom of the grocery store receipt.
And I know a lot of sweary words in Gaelic because that's my grandpa used to shout at me. And then I know all the sweary a lot of sweary words in Polish because I've got some Polish mates that I grew up with. So I know I've got bits of two languages, but it's all swear words.
One of my friends in LA, his goal was to learn how to say take off your trousers in every language. I don't know. I think he's given up on
it. But did he use it to his advantage in every language? That's the question.
I don't think he ever really did. Although, you know what, his longtime partner, she's Cuban and she speaks Spanish. So I don't know. I'll have to ask her. Maybe I'll ask him.
Did you learn
maybe
it
I won't
first?
Ask her. I imagine during the lockdown and everything, you know, like tell me what's the same and what's different on Islay, because, you know, I realized that like in January, February, things are always kind of quiet on Islay.
Yeah. I think last January, February it was quite similar to normal over here. It was kind of quiet. We were all sort of in the January blues after Christmas and New Year. And we were just going into a really busy period at Bruichladdich because we try to work for 4-6 months a year in advance of what's coming. So in January time, we've usually got quite a lot of stuff upcoming for product releases and whatnot. So we were going into a really busy period. And because I work across the brands, botanists and all the malts brands, I had a really big project kicking off with the botanist where we were making a film, a brand, a kind of brand film, latest in a series that we were doing, based on Islay and focusing on James and Adam. So we were just about to start that, and then obviously all this kicked off. So January, February, pretty quiet. And then as I got into the lockdown kind of starting, it was quite a worrying time, I think, over here because, you know, we're limited in terms of our medical services. We've got a small cottage hospital, no emergency care, you know, no ventilation, no ICU. And you know, Glasgow can be hours away if you're in serious, you know, if you're seriously ill. So it was quite worrying for us. It really was. And you know, having small kids myself and stuff, we were pretty worried at the start. And then I think the thing that didn't change when it all was the kind of spirit of the community, because everybody immediately pulled together. You know, there was recovery groups started, there was support groups started where volunteers would go around looking after the elderly and vulnerable in the community. Bruichladdich donated spirit to create hand sanitizer, which we donated Round Island. Ardbeg donated a massive amount of money to do the same. Diageo did it too, and you know, really, really quickly, you know, probably in the first month, you know, there was this massive group of volunteers who were working to ensure that the most vulnerable were protected, and then, you know, working their way down from that to you know, the younger generation and making sure we were all had our sanitizer and we all knew the rules and stuff. And I mean, I think the main thing for us is obviously Bruichladdich closed really, really quick. I think we were the first distillery to say we're stopping. We're you know, that's not to make anybody else look bad. It's just they wanted to act quick. And before even lockdown properly started, they made the call to say we're going to stop, and we'll stop for 2 weeks, and then we'll see kind of what happens. And we all get the okay to work from home. And then that was it. That was a year ago now, and we're back in production, obviously, but we're not really back in the office. Some of the guys are who have to be on site, but most of us are still working from home. So that's been a bit of a challenge. It's had its own challenge. I mean, it's good in a way because, you know, I'm a talker, so I'll go to the canteen or the kitchen and have a cup of tea and spend 10 minutes chatting to people when I should be probably doing some work. So I actually probably get more done on the computer, but I really miss speaking to people. Like, that was a big part of my job beforehand, was, you know, working with guys like yourself and, you know, a lot of visitors come over to the island, journalists and press and, you know, PR visitors and stuff. And then that stopped overnight. So our whole job changed, you know, in the course of 24 hours. So it was that, you know, that was a bit of a challenge, and it's never went back to normal since. So yeah, I mean, there's some things are still the same, but quite a lot that's changed. Some for the better and some for the worse.
You know, I'm despite not being an ELOC, I mean, but I somehow was given access to the Islay community group on Facebook.
Oh yeah, it's fun and games.
Which I find very endearing. And the story I tell people all the time is, like, the day that I joined it, someone had written that they were moving from, I want to say it was like Port Nahaven to maybe Beaumont or somewhere. Yep. They were moving far, and that on the way, the sofa cushions blew out of the back of the truck and they couldn't locate the sofa cushions. And there were like 45 responses saying, someone spotted them on this field at this turn, and then they'd go there and they were gone by then. And I remember it was super windy that day. And I thought, oh, they're going to be, those couch cushions are going to be on Jura by the time. So, but I mean, and I'm not making fun. I just found that very endearing. It felt like an episode of, do you remember a TV show from the late 90s? It was an American show, but it was set in Alaska, called Northern Exposure.
I do remember. I was probably about 10, 11 when that was out, but I do remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it felt very much like that. They would do a whole episode about that one person's sofa cushions went missing, and the whole, you know, the dynamics of a small community were and it was a funny show at times, you know, and that just felt like what they would have done an entire episode about.
Yeah, no, that's like a daily occurrence, that sort of stuff in the community. Like, it's either massive fighting and political discourse, or it's something like that. Like, I lost my wallet with 800 quid in it, and somebody found it down the street, and it was all intact and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's always a hive of fun as Islay Community Notice Board, that's for sure.
It's funny. Everyone always says when you nose a whiskey, you can kind of, sometimes you get a sense of the dunnage. And I think there's no whiskey for me that's more true of. When I nose a whiskey, I smell Bruichladdich when I'm drinking a Bruichladdich. That the nose is the place.
Yeah.
And this is a classic laddie, and every time I drink this, I smell as if I'm there. Like, it's a really strong sense, more than any other whiskey that I drink, and it's more than any other. It's more than with the Port Charlotte or the Octomore. It's with the classic laddie, I really get it.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think there's a sort of there's a psychological hook there as well, isn't there? Especially when you're not there. So it's almost like I think with whiskey, more than any other drink, it breeds like a kind of sort of nostalgia. So, like for instance, I first drank Glendronach 21-year-old Parliament, which is now one of my favourite non-Bruichladdich drams. I first drank that at Paris Whisky Live, an event in Paris, and every time that I nose Glendronach 21, I can smell my hotel room, and my hotel room smelled amazing. Right, I don't know what they used to scent this hotel room, but every time I nose Glendronach, it always bang. It takes me right back to first time in Paris, or first time as an adult in Paris, and it takes you back into this sort of world. So whether it's whether it's a psychological thing, it just attaches that, or you're actually getting it in the nose. But I think it's really whiskey more than there's no other drink that's ever. I mean, I've been to drank amazing beers in Berlin, and I've done the same in Prague and stuff like that. And I've never had that same connection as I do with whiskey. And for me with Bruichladdich, it's Islay barley. And I think when you nose Islay barley, you really do get barley. And again, whether that, I mean, obviously I spent time working in the mash house for a good few years at Bruichladdich before there you go, that's the one. And I think every time I nose an Islay barley, bang, I'm in the mash house, and I can smell the same smells I did in the mash house. And for me, when you just pour a little, I know it's a shame to waste it, Derek Mather in the chat will crack it pouring a bit of whiskey, but you drip a little bit of Islay barley in the palm of your hand and heat it up and get a good kind of warm nose of that, and it's barley fields. It's absolutely barley fields, and it flies in the face of the naysayers who'll say that barley doesn't really matter, but I definitely agree that the connections are always there.
It's funny because the opposite is true. I don't know if have you ever spent any time in New York?
Yeah, 2018, I think, was the last time I was there.
So where I am right now, I live in Los Angeles, but my wife's family is from the far north of New York State. I'm closer to Canada than I am. I'm closer to Montreal than I am to New York City right now.
Okay.
And I'm really close to where the Olympics were in 1980, the Lake Placid Olympics.
Oh yeah.
I was actually there last weekend, and so New York State has given hand sanitizer free all over the state, or very, very cheap to anyone who wants it. They've just mass produced hand sanitizer, just like the distilleries have, but it's the state. But what my wife noticed that the hand sanitizer they give out smells exactly like the cleaning solvent they use in the subway stations in New York and the roadside rest stops, the bathrooms and stuff. So it's not a nice smell to equate with it, and I used some the other day in the car, and she was like, that's awful. I hate that. You're going to leave me out here on the side of the road.
That is amazing that they've done that, even though it takes you somewhere you don't really want to be. But yeah, I mean, that's still, I mean, trying to do it for the entire state the size of New York, that's quite a feat. Yeah.
It's funny though. I mean, I don't know what the percentage breakdown is, but a huge majority of New York's population is in the city. It's hugely. It's funny though, because New York has other cities. There are, Syracuse and Buffalo and Albany and Rochester. They're actual cities. Yeah. But they pale in comparison to New York City. But I think we're 4 hours north of New York City here.
Right. Okay. I went to New York City with Christy McFarlane, who a colleague of mine at Bruichladdich, and I'd never been to New York before, and I'm a proper Islay guy, proper Islay boy. Like when I took this job back in 2018, I knew there'd be a little bit of travel, but I hadn't really travelled many places, just the normal kind of holiday locations, as I was saying, Berlin, Prague, stag weekends, and Spain and stuff. But I'd never been to America at all. And Christy spent the whole 5 days just laughing at how much of a chuchter, I don't know if you know the word chuchter, you guys,
I do,
but,
yeah.
but proper chuchter comes to town, like, my neck was sore for the first 2 days because I was looking up all the time. So Kirsty would turn around and I'm like this, just looking around, like, and then she says, like, there's a little village where I'm from in Islay called Port Weems, and she turns around and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like this, and she's like, and I turned around and it was just one of these things, I wasn't really in my headspace, I was just like trying to take everything in, and I was like, I'm just a wee guy from Port Weems. Like, I don't see these things, like, I was mentally exhausted just from being like in a city that size and trying to, your senses are in total overload. It's just like smells and tastes and sights and sounds. You're just like constantly in the
Yeah.
go, and I was just burnt out. I was totally burnt out. By the time we got to Whiskey Fest, the reason we were there, I was shattered. I was totally done in. So yeah, but it was amazing though, like food and drink and stuff. I lost about 2 stone before I went to New York that year, and then when I got to New York and came back, I think I put that 2 stone back on. So a shame.
Where I'm from, Pennsylvania, and I don't know if you know Pennsylvania Dutch country, where the Amish are. That's where I'm from.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very farming oriented. Very, I mean, the Amish, they don't use cars or electricity or anything, and there's horses.
Churn their own butter and stuff, don't they? And
yeah.
Make their cheese and yeah.
Yep. And so, I mean, my family's not Amish, but I grew up amongst them, in that part of the world. So I grew up in a very small town where you could walk to everything, and as a kid, but I grew up close enough to all these big cities that every year for my birthday, my grandmother and her sister would take me to New York or to Philadelphia or to Washington, and we'd go do sort of these cultural trips, and they'd make me wear a suit for some reason. I was like 9 or 10. And on my 10th birthday, my grandfather gave me a pocket knife, like a little tiny pen knife.
Yep.
And they immediately, my grandmother and her sister said, no, he can't have the knife. But, I was wearing a suit, and so there's, the inside pocket. So my grandfather took it, put it in my inside pocket, and kind of gave it to me. So they took me to New York. This is the first time I've ever been to New York in my life. And we went to the Natural History Museum, and there's an actual whale taxidermied on the ceiling of the Natural History Museum, a real whale. And while we were looking at it, I was secretly playing with the knife, and I gashed my hand really bad. And so I'd spent all day feeling like, I'm a man now. My grandfather gave me a knife. And then that ended when my grandmother dragged me into the women's room to try to get it to stop bleeding. I still remember looking at the sign. It said women, and I was like, it's just.
I went from being a knife carrying hard man into the women's toilet.
Yeah,
that's not good.
I still have the knife. I mean, I don't think you could cut a piece of toast with it, but I still have it.
Yeah, it's funny. The only pocket knife I've got as well was from my grandpa, so I always had my eye on it. It was like this amazing locking knife. I just used to see when we went fishing, and I always said I want that knife. And a few times I tried to steal it, but this beautiful red handle, brass fittings, and it was just class. And I tried to nick out his house a couple of times out his fishing box, and he always caught me. And then when he died, I was like, I'm having that knife. That is my knife now. So I've still got that down the stairs. But yeah.
This was never a good knife. My grandfather worked for. There used to be a shoe company all over America called Kinney's, and he worked for Kinney's like in their distribution centers, like warehousing and distribution and stuff. And this was just a knife that they all carried because they were always cutting boxes open and redoing stuff. And so this just says Kinney's shoes on it, but it was his knife, and he gave it to me. So
that's all that matters.
Yeah,
that's all that matters. I see Fonz in the chat there.
Oh yeah,
I see Fonz. Been a while since I've seen that man. And who else is it, Udo?
Oh, I'm sure.
What you drinking? I'm having an Octomore 10.4.
Oh,
that's what I'm on. I'm sophisticated tonight.
As you know, I'm drinking the Classic Laddie. My whiskey collection's in LA.
Okay.
So I've just built a little.
It's not a great climate for whiskey drinking unless you're on the rocks, of course. LA, is it? I assume it's hot.
Well, it's not hot. It's not hot the way like Phoenix is hot or anything. It very, very rarely gets hot. It's usually quite nice. It's usually the mid-20s. In the height of summer, it gets into the mid-20s Celsius.
Yeah,
but that's about it. Every now and then it'll go a little bit crazy and get into the 30s, but it's usually actually very temperate.
Yeah. Oh well.
And there's a big whiskey community in LA. It's funny because Pennsylvania has a very regressive liquor laws, some of the worst in the country.
Right.
Even though I live twice as far away from Scotland as Pennsylvania is, I can get much more whiskey at much lower price.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we were just talking today about there's a bar in LA called 7 Grand. It's at the intersection of 7th and Grand.
Nice.
And it looks like a mix between a sort of Scottish hunting lodge and like a fun house. I mean, it's all tartan. It's all Black Watch tartan carpets and stags' heads, and has a cigar lounge outside. It's in an old converted
Nice.
warehouse. And the whiskey wall is so tall. There's like a big fireman's ladder sort of mounted there. They have to climb, and they have low. It's actually, I mean, they do really very serious events all the time. And
Yeah.
We may do something with them in a couple weeks. They actually helped us at the very beginning of the film. We actually shot some shots in the film of people enjoying drams and just drinking. Those were shot there.
Ah, right. Okay. I think I know. I think I know what you mean. I think from when we shot in Glasgow, I think I remember that. Is that still in it? In the latest version, that scene you're talking about. Yeah. You know, that's cool. I think I've actually heard of 7 Grand now that you're talking about it. But
there's a really great liquor store in LA too. Well, there's a couple really good ones, but K&L Wines has the David OG. I don't know if you know who he is by any chance, but he's a whiskey blogger,
so.
and he's like the head of
Right,
the whiskey buying there and everything. But he's got a lot of followers online, and I actually have a bunch of whiskey waiting for me at K&L that I ordered before we decided to spend the winter here in the mountains. My kids have never really experienced, we have 2 feet of snow outside right here where I am now.
Oh, do you? Awesome.
And yeah, I was snowshoeing yesterday. We're going skating tomorrow and tobogganing last weekend. I mean,
That's
my
awesome.
kids were born in LA, so they don't know.
Pretty similar to ours, really. I mean, our kids hadn't really seen snow until about 3 weeks ago. And I mean, Islay, being on the West Coast, quite a mild climate, out to sea, a lot of wind, a lot of rain, but snow doesn't really lie that often. That you'll get a burst, but it doesn't really lie. But then about maybe 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we got a massive blizzard for like over 24 hours. So we had probably in our garden and round, we live in Keels, which is in the North of the island, which is probably the highest, or in fact, I think it is the highest village on the island. And we had probably 4 inches, maybe 4 or 5 inches. And for us, I mean, that's unheard of, really. So, of course, we got the homemade sledge and we made the snowman. And one of my friends, Raymond, who's actually one of the barley farmers for the Daddy, Raymond Fletcher, he lives across the road at Keels Farm, and he got the quad bike and the sledge in the back of it. Well, the sledge was actually a wheelbarrow, which had the chassis removed from the bottom, so just the barrow part.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled all the kids in the quad bike round the fields and the farm. So that was a day's worth of fun that the kids had never seen before. My oldest 11, and he'd never been in a sledge in the snow or anything like that. So it was cool. It was really good. And I mean, I love the snow. I'd rather go on a snowy holiday than a sunny holiday. So
me too.
So it was great to have it for a couple of days.
So I'm in Lake George, New York, and Lake George looks a lot like Loch Lomond. It's a very long, thin lake. It goes north to south. So it looks, if you looked at it from a distance, you might think you were looking at a river rather than a lake, because it's very narrow. It's a mile wide and 33 miles long. And it is frozen solid right now. And there's people on quad runners out on the lake. There's ice fishermen out there every day. We went out there. My wife's family has a camp down along the lake, and we went down to the camp. It's shut down for the winter, but there's a dock, and we walked out. It was a weird experience for me. Like, we walked out like right off the end of the dock and walked way. And my son was crazy. Like, there's a buoy about halfway across, and he said, I want to go see the buoy because you could see it sticking out of the ice. I said, okay, but I'm a big guy. My son is not. I mean, he's big for a 9-year-old, but my kids are both very skinny, and I said, yeah, all right, let's do it. And the whole time and then about 3/4 of the way there, we heard the whole lake just kind of groan.
Oh,
and
no.
Both of us were like, all right, we're done. We're going back. Now, look, I'm heavy, but I'm not anywhere near as heavy as a snowmobile or a quad runner. So, and there were people out there on those. So I know I would have been fine, but just hearing it crack was just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to relax anymore. Especially with
I'm
my
not
kids.
playing that game either. Nah.
Yeah.
Nah, it doesn't interest me in the slightest. So I think I love the snow, but nah, I'm not into that.
Yeah, this was a first for me. And it was weird. It was kind of fun. But I mean, if I look out the window over here now, it's not quite dark here yet. And there's people out there, that ice fishermen sit out there. It's funny, there's some of them that have they're real gearheads. They'll have like these little pop-up tents. It would have been wooden shacks before, but now they're these little pop-up tents, and they'll sit in there and they have the little hand drill to drill into the ice. But then there's other guys, and these are my people. A guy goes out there and he's got 2 buckets. And what it is in the bucket, he's got like a flask of whiskey, maybe a cigar, and then a hand drill. He takes one bucket, turns it upside down, and sits on it, drills a hole, turns the other bucket, and that's where he's going to put his fish. And he just sits there in the wind all day. And
That's the dream.
my best friend said to me last week, that guy either really loves fishing or he really hates his life. Because he's sitting.
I was going to say, he really loves fishing or he really hates his wife.
Yeah, it could have gone either way, life or wife or job, or whatever. Because he's got no cover. It's windy as hell. There's horizontal snow. And I always want to know what whiskey they're drinking.
I know, it'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to hear that. Like a good cask strength is going to keep you pretty warm out there, isn't it? A good 61, 62%. It's going to keep you warm out there.
There is a whiskey that's here from here. I actually have a bottle of it here. It's called American Oak.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen it before. Yeah, I've never.
That's made here. It's good. It's cask strength, 61. Aged 6 months.
Nice. What more do you want than a 6-month aged whiskey? I think it's probably the kind of thing that we would try if you can get away with it at Bruichladdich. Like we've released spirit in the past, but I mean we've had plenty of spirit. Like I've been working in production and we've ran spirit off and like I've tasted it and I've been I would drink that by the bottle. Like if you could get that to a drinkable strength, I would drink that by the bottle. So maybe it just doesn't need to spend that long in a cask, really.
Yeah. It depends on the cask, I guess.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you get good quality spirit, you put in good quality wood, then you get good quality whiskey. If you get good quality spirit and you put in shit wood, is it going to be good quality whiskey in the end? Probably not. But we don't try it. We don't use shit wood, so we don't know.
You should try it. You can probably get your hands on some pretty cheap.
Yeah, like a good Biff Bill ex bourbon, like something like that.
I had a conversation with Jim today because we did this. You've probably seen the single cask bottle we did, and the reason we picked this one, the guys at the single cask had 4 Bruichladdich casks, and we picked this one because we wanted to do a fun event where the event was actually going to be all about spirit, not about wood, and we wanted, this was a Bruichladdich. It wasn't a Port Charlotte. It wasn't the one they had was a Loch and Dal, which is a favorite of mine. But this one we wanted, really to sort of speak to the spirit. And this is first fill bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of right down the middle, and it's And Jim felt like 11 years is a really good age for that, where you sort of a balance between the spirit and the wood.
Yeah.
Jim said that's the year they get married.
Jim would. It's funny. I haven't seen Jim since the start. Well, not properly since the start of lockdown, but I got a voicemail, a missed call the other day on my phone. I had a voicemail, so I picked up and listened to it. It was Jim. Robert, my internet. I've got a problem with this internet and this computer here. This computer here, and the internet's not working, and I can't get it working. My emails. Can you give me a phone? That's fine. So I gave my phone the next day, and he says, "Oh, the internet here in this device, internet, email, internet device." It's okay, right? I maybe need to come and get a hold of it. Well, Barbara will speak to you. Barbara will speak. Okay, right. So Barbara, Jim's wife, came on the phone, and it turned out it wasn't his computer, it was his phone or his iPad, and he couldn't get the email to sync. So that's fine. So I said, right, okay. I told Barbara what to do to roughly fix the emails, and she managed. That's fine. Right, Jim wants to speak to you just before you go. Okay, that's fine. He says, "Oh, I'll only hold you a minute." 45 minutes later, we were still on the phone talking about. He was marking whiskies at the time for, I think it was a competition that he's judging. So he was going through all his whiskies and giving me his marks. And there's some Pertellans in there and some amazing Lafroigs and some Port Charlottes and Bruichladdich and stuff. And this has got 94 and this has got 94. And I've got this one here. And I just thought, you've just got my dream life, like sitting getting, all these whiskies, like Barbara's sorting your phone for you, like just you drink your whiskies and mark them. But yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying about the cask there, because I think it's funny the way some spirits work with some wood and some don't. So for me, like for instance, like Bruichladdich in bourbon for me is like Bruichladdich unpeated in bourbon, bang, perfect. Like I don't know if you've ever tasted the first edition 15-year-old that we released back in 2001, 2002, right at the very early days of the Renaissance. But 15-year-old full term first fill bourbon, like unbelievable. And then for Port Charlotte, it's a wine cask, Bordeaux wine casks, amazing. And then for Octomore, virgin oak. So I always think that it doesn't matter you can give me Bruichladdich and sherry or Bruichladdich and wine, and I'll always 9 times out of 10 prefer the bourbon. Give me Port Charlotte and anything, and I'll always usually prefer the wine. Give me Octomore and everything, and I'll always usually prefer the virgin oak, which is why I'm drinking 10.4. So it's weird. I don't know if it's just my personal taste, but I just think that's how these spirits best work. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys with that one. Like you find that right balance, and you're sorted.
Yeah, and it's funny. This one actually has a real. There's a savory note in this one that I've never tasted in a Bruichladdich before. That and it's almost Brendan described it as like a fennel note.
Right.
But it's lovely. It's really, really a fantastic dram, and I'm not saying that because I'm trying to be a salesman, because we sold out.
We sold out. Exactly, all that. Aye. So
yeah,
you get nothing to sell. I think Jim's got some, doesn't he? I'm sure he'll manage to nab a sample off Jim.
Yes, Jim, as when we spoke today, he had not yet received it, but we did send him some. Yes,
that's right. I'll manage to get at least a dram out of him, I'm sure. See what it's like.
It's one of the things that I was asked by a bunch of people to ask you today was, what exciting things are coming up at Bruichladdich. I was like, well, they're not going to tell me anything really, really juicy.
It's funny. I actually we had a meeting of the marketing team, as we now call ourselves at Bruichladdich. We've had over the last year. Our marketing or our brand director, as she was called, Geraldine, she left to go over to Westland, so she's now overseeing a few bits and pieces at Westland now, and Gareth Brown, who's our new boss, new marketing director, started, I think it was July. So he's brought in this real freshness and changed things up a bit and kind of reshuffled things, and today we had one of our kind of quarterly sort of marketing meetings, which is part of that, and during that we were presented with three of the new kind of releases. One that's out, the Islay Barley 2012, which I still have my little sample of here, but I drank another one of them earlier on, and then 2 other releases that are due to come out over the next kind of few months. So we had a nice little taste of that today. So I really do have all the information and all the taste notes and everything you could possibly imagine. But at the end of that meeting, I said to Christy, because Christy's overseeing all the kind of comms now, the PR and comms. And I said to Christy, I'm doing this live with Greg tonight. If he asks me what's coming, what can I tell him? And she says, absolutely nothing. but no, I mean, what I can tell you, what I can tell you is there is some stuff coming really soon. In the next couple of weeks, even there's something that you're going to really want to keep an eye out for: newsletter, social media, an e-comms release, which is something some people might have seen something like before in the past, but not for a long time, and certainly not something I thought we'd see anytime soon from Bruichladdich Distillery. But we've done it, and it's coming in the next couple of weeks. So
nice.
So you'll need to keep your eyes out for that one. I can't possibly tell you what it is, but that's coming in the next couple of weeks. And then shortly after that, we'll be announcing a small series of bottlings that'll be coming over the next sort of maybe 12 months, which is again something you've never seen before from us ever. Totally new sort of idea, but coming from an existing portfolio, but a new idea, and that'll be coming March as well, the first one of them. So the next month's going to be really exciting. There's two really exciting releases coming out, and I think also the Islay Barley 2012, I think is one of the best Islay Barleys we've ever done. So yeah, things are looking up.
The reason I'm saving I held up the Islay Barley there. There's the 2011 Islay Barley. Is I'm saving. There's about maybe 2 drams left in it. I'm saving it so I can do a side by side when I get my hands on a 12, but I haven't had any yet. So
I like to with the barley exploration. I like to get the 3 if I can. So the Octomore 0.3, which is obviously Islay Barley, the Bruichladdich Islay barley and the Charlotte Islay barley, and I know they're obviously usually different vintages and definitely different cask makeups, but I always just like to compare them. And as I was saying earlier, when you're talking about nose and getting the nose of the barley and the nose of the place, those are the three that I can really get them. And it's funny, like James Brown, his son Graham was one of our best pals, kind of growing up, and we were up there all the time playing about and mucking about at the farm and stuff. And genuinely with the 0.3, take a little bit, drop it in my hand, get a bit of heat going, nose it from the hands, and I can smell that farm. And whether that's my brain just like connecting the two things or not, but I've got that.
This is
11.3. I've got
That's
that.
all I've got though.
I've got a full bottle just up there behind us, actually, 11.3. I think. Oh no, that's a 10-year-old. I have it somewhere.
Do you know what's funny? The other day, so we did our Burns night week. Our Burns night week. It's a funny thing with night week, but and we blew away our own expectations of how many tickets we were going to sell. We were really, really, truly pleased. But what has happened is a lot of people, every day we get a couple of people writing to us, when can I see the film? When can I see the film? I missed this. I want to see the film. And right now we're doing these club events all over the world. And that's going really, really well. I mean, today, in the last week alone, we've done club events in Prague, Norway, Japan. We're doing Australia. We're doing Singapore. We're doing all over the US. Tomorrow I'm doing a thing. Actually, I'm doing a Q&A tomorrow with Simon.
Oh, are you?
At an event in Massachusetts. I mean, when I say in Massachusetts, I'm going to be in this chair.
Yeah. Yeah. And Simon won't be in Massachusetts either.
But yeah, so it's like these smaller events we're doing are going really, really well. But we do want to make the film available to people in a way that, so we kind of had this meeting. We were all joking about like what is a Burns night type event coming up that would warrant us doing another public event. And I realized that our group think was just like Bruichladdich in like 2003 or 4. Like, it's a line in the film, any excuse to release a bottle. It's going to snow this weekend. How about that? The Blizzard release, and like we're, I think you met Linda, our one co-producer, who's from Danube. Yeah. So I wrote to her and I wrote to Linda and I said, can you come up with anything going on that's remotely interesting in Argyle in the next couple of months? And she sent me some things, but we haven't landed on any yet. But because we really do want to share the film, but what the problem is, we kind of have to balance that with, this is when we would have gone to whiskey festivals and film festivals. So these are like smaller kind of curated events, because we're gonna wind up on Netflix or Amazon Prime or one of the other streamers. But once that's when we're done with it. That's when, that's when someone else is running it. And so, we want to do this as long as we can. And now that it looks like we might wind up doing a whole series of screenings all over China. So who knows? I mean,
the timing has just been a pain, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how many people know about it, or maybe I'm talking out of turn here and I'll get around, but we were obviously planning an event with you guys around about our festival time.
Yeah, I tell everybody that.
So I was heavily involved in the organising of that, and we were really, really looking forward to it. And the plans we had for the masterclass would have probably doubled the size of the masterclass from any year before. We had this massive screening event, huge cinema, amazing lights, the whole singing and dancing show, and it was going to be amazing. I was so looking forward to it, and then obviously all this nonsense started, and that went by the wayside. But it's a shame. But it's amazing now how people have adapted and how you guys have adapted as well, in the same way. You've just got to go what you got, don't you? So if it's virtual, that's what you've got to do. And I think people are really embracing it, and just getting on board. And everyone's in the same boat here. We might be in different countries, but we're all in the same boat. And I mean, I've spent so much time talking to people through a screen. I feel like I'm in a high security prison. It's just like constantly just like through glass with people. But everyone's in the same boat, and people are adapting. And I mean, as you've mentioned, I think in the past, the people I really feel sorry for are the people in the on-trade, bars, restaurants. I mean, that's how can you make that virtual? There's so many people can adapt to things, but these guys, it's just like it's horrific. And I can, you know, I'm just hoping and praying that some of my favorite bars in the mainland and in other countries I've been to just survive it. You know, it's like it's terrible, but
Yeah.
it's great to see how you have adapted, and these events are amazing. And I've had a sneak preview of the film because I asked nicely. So anyone, if you ask nicely, I'm sure Greg will just show you. I'm sure. But no, I had to bribe my way in with some stuff, with some work. But there you go.
Do you know how do you know of all the people who were really disappointed about us not getting to screen this there? Do you know who was the most disappointed? This guy right here over my shoulder, because that is Brad, our cinematographer.
Oh, Brad Kenyon, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember this, but this image was going to be, we were going to do a Valinch, and this was going to be the label of the Valinch. That image was right,
exactly. Yeah, I
and
forgot about that actually.
Brad has the biggest whiskey collection of any of my friends, and he's completely redone his basement. He has hundreds of bottles of whiskey, and he was beyond excited. He wouldn't admit it because he's very, you know, a dour grump, but he was beyond excited.
I want a label. I want a label on a bottle. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I know it's a guy, and I know Jim was disappointed as well. I was speaking to Jim and Barb at the time, and I'd lined them up some front row seats. So I know he was good, and the whole team were at Bruichladdich. And I mean, the thing is, we'll go again. You know, if it's next year, hopefully. You know, let's see what's happening, and we'll go again. Hopefully, it's all back to normal. We're all vaccinated, and or not, if that's your thing. But if we're all vaccinated and it's all gone, and we're ready to rock and roll again, we'll get going again.
I think it's funny. We're a little bit in a catch-22, my family, because my wife works at a hospital in Los Angeles, and because of that, but she's not a medical personnel; she's medical education. But she would qualify for a vaccine, but she has to be there, and she'd have to then stay for 3 weeks to get the second vaccine. So even though I wouldn't qualify yet, and my kids wouldn't qualify yet, she would. So we've been sort of debating, and it's not like, you know, the size of the country. It's not like we could just drive there and drive back. I mean, we very well may. We did over the summer. We drove across the country, but that's 5 days.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's massive. But is it just worth the squeeze? I suppose the end. But yeah, if it was, I don't know what I would do if it was me, but I'm just it's get all the vaccines. I don't care what we do. Just get them in me, and let's get back to normal again. That's all I care about. I'll do whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, get your microchip, get it in me, track my movements. I don't care. I'm very boring. I only go to the house to Bruichladdich. It's fine. Let's get moving.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, look, we kept our promise. I told people that you and I would go way beyond a half an hour. I mean, I'm not chomping to bit to go, but I know it's late there for you.
Yeah. No. Well, the only thing I've got to do tonight is I've got a date on my PlayStation with a few of my mates, but I've not given a time. So especially when there's whiskey involved, when I start doing that, I'll stop drinking whiskey. So, but what is if I can ask you a question? What is your what when this all gets back, back to normal? Are you guys like, say festivals back on next year, phases all go again? Are you planning coming back in with the film and doing potentially doing things that you were going to do the last time, or are you sort of just going to wait it out and just see how things go?
No, if there's still interest in it, we will do it for sure. And I'll probably come as an individual either way. And I know that Jim has repeatedly suggested to me that we shot so much footage that we didn't use, and we have extensive drone footage of all of Scotland, but of every distillery on Islay, of every single one, extensive. And Jim thinks we should cut together a shorter, like a standalone film, and come and sell DVDs just of beautiful Islay, aerial Islay. And we're not adverse to doing that, but at the same time, we just haven't done it yet. But we would love to come back. We actually might even do, like, we're hoping to do, I won't even say hoping, we are going to do a series of more spirits related films. We're already well on our way to having a full film about independent bottling. We're making a secondary film, a shorter thing about independent bottling. We've done, I'm going to say we've shot 70 to 80% of that film already, just before the quarantine began. And then we have to go back. I probably need 4 or 5 more days of shooting. but we also have one of our team lives in Edinburgh, and he's been shooting stuff here and there for us while he can. In the interim, actually, he was shooting stuff for us yesterday. He's going to be on Islay next week. He's shooting something for Beaumont.
Right.
And I was surprised that was even doable right now. But
I think if it's work related and you make your case, I think then you might get turned away at the ferry, but you can always try.
Yeah, well, this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
This is his own project. Or he got hired by someone else to do this. But we're very interested in doing more shooting as well as more sharing. And I would have been at the Fescio last year. I would be there this year, I'm sure. And
no, it'd be good to see you guys back again. I think it's the same for everybody that we work with so many people and stuff that you're just like, you start to miss the people you don't really like. And I'm not saying that's you, but even the ones you don't really like, you're like, I'm so bored of this. I wouldn't even mind spending 5 minutes with him. But yeah, no, we were so looking forward to having you guys back, and it's just it'll be good to get you back again. You and Fons, to see Fons is right up there, so get him back, and the team will be good.
Well, I'm assuming that this has given everyone enough break. You won't admit it, I'm sure, but I have to assume that you were getting sick of me bugging you with stuff, having you record Jim stuff for me, translations and that stuff. And,
I mean, it's great. To be honest, I really enjoyed that because it's I'm up for that. And I first met Jim when I was 18 when I came to work for Bruichladdich the first time, and any time I can spend with Jim getting the stories and the crack, like I'm well up for that. Like most of my banter throughout my life is lines that I've adapted from stuff that Jim said to me. So yeah, I'm all for, but like I'm all for spending time with Jim. So yeah, all for that. But in fact, you need to get him. You need to get him on this platform. On this, I can go down and help him set up. You'll need a bit of help to set this up, but you need to get Jim on this, and Billy Walker as well. You need to get Billy Walker on this. That'd be fabulous.
I would love to do Billy Walker on this. When we did our Burns Night event, he's the only person that we tried and weren't able to get. And we were sort of told very politely that he's a bit zoomed out. And
I bet yes.
Jim told me that as much today too about himself. He said I don't have a social life anymore. I'm on Zoom all the time. And I said, Jim, I hate to say it, but I think that's what counts as a social life right now.
That's a social life now. Yeah, exactly.
That's
our social life too. It's been good. It's been great. I've enjoyed this.
Oh yeah, no, me too. I'm really glad that we were able to do this. And I think next week I'm going to talk to Derek Mather.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, get him to put his Lego collection in the background because his makes mine look embarrassing. His Lego collection makes mine look embarrassing, and his whiskey collection makes mine look embarrassing. So you can get his in the background too.
His whiskey collection. I don't know if you saw the thing I put on our Facebook group the other day. You've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Oh
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The very, very last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark is that unbelievably large warehouse where they're just putting it in that box. Yeah. That's when he talks about the laddie loft. That's what I always think of. Is
yeah. I'm certain he's got a big hole in the back of that wall upstairs, and it's like a forklift out the back. It's like every day another delivery comes, like another pallet, and it gets lifted up and put in. I sometimes I unfollow him on Facebook because he just annoys me. But he's got cases and cases of 15-year-old. And I think I actually messaged him on Facebook it must have been 7-8 years ago. I actually when I had a massive whiskey collection when I was younger, and when myself and Erin were having kids, and I was working away at the time. Erin was here, didn't have much money, so I started selling off my whiskey collection. And at the time you could still sell on eBay. So I'd put a bottle on eBay, and then the next day it would sell Derek Mather, artisan restaurant, but usually for lunches at the time. So the next one, Derek Mather, artisan restaurant. So over time, over like a year, I was like, who is this Derek Mather guy? This is before Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. But who is this Derek Mather guy buying all my whiskey? Like, I really want to go to his restaurant now just because I've sent so much whiskey there. And then obviously when I came back to Bruichladdich in 2014, then I met him again, and I think I messaged him shortly after saying, like, I saw a photo on Facebook, you had loads of 15-year-old first edition. Any chance I could buy a bottle off you? And he was like, nah, no chance. I sold the guy like 30 bottles or something, and then he's like, nah, I don't have any to spare. Sorry, I've only got 28 or something like that. So, but nah, great guy, big supporter of Bruichladdich, and yeah, I'm just a jealous boy. That's all.
Yeah, me too. We just finished his barbecue sauce last night. We made
Oh,
my wife tried to recreate his burgers.
yeah, the sauce is unreal. Like, before he bottled it and sold it, like obviously he'd bring over like a big supply for festival day. And Carol Reevy, the late Carol, great guy who used to run our team, he would do the barbecue. So I would always be sneaking behind the barbecue and I'd be like, Carol. So, there'd be like big bottles like this size, big plastic bottles. And Carol, so he'd sneak me one when I were away, and that bottle would last my burgers for a good like 6 months at summer barbecue season. And, so I had my own little private supply that no one really knew about. So.
You know, I bought, when Derek sold it a few months ago, he was selling it and shipping it to the US. I may have had a few too many drams that night, and I thought I was buying 2 bottles, and I bought 2 cases. So all of our team got a bottle for Christmas last year.
Oh, awesome!
And I still have
two
6
birds in one
bottles.
stone.
Yeah.
Nah, that's awesome. There's worse Christmas presents to get than that, I'm sure.
Sure.
But I've actually never been to Artisan, to the restaurant yet, actually. And some of the guys have been over doing tastings and stuff and whatnot. So I need to actually make sure that after all this is passed with it, I actually get up and see it in person, because like I feel like I know it so well, because like you get a virtual tour really, because friends of Bruichladdich and all that, you're always seeing different parts of it and little kind of live things and stuff. So I know it inside out, but I've just never been there. So I'm looking forward to actually getting there and having some food and some whiskey.
You want to hear a funny little story about? I've only been there once, but I was there maybe a year and a half ago. Yeah, no, it was when I was there, it was the day after you were in Glasgow for that screening, when we did the advanced screening in Glasgow. The next day I went there.
Right.
And so it was a weekday, and it was lunch, and I was with Linda, our producer there from Dunoon. So it was me and Linda, and then there was only one other table that had people at the time. That was like these 4 old ladies, and they were clearly friends, and they were bickering constantly with each other, and it was mostly one of them versus 3 of them. And the one who was arguing with them was much older than the other 3. And at one point she had a cane, and she dropped her cane, and the other woman tried to pick it up for her, and she scolded the woman for picking it up for her. And then when they were paying to leave, that same woman dropped a £1 coin, and it rolled across the floor and hit my shoe. And I bent down to pick it up, and Linda looked at me and went, "Don't do it." So I didn't know what was going on. I didn't do it. So this woman, this like 90-year-old woman, came over and picked up this coin, and I said, "Why wouldn't you let me help that woman?" She said, "Because she doesn't want help." She yelled at, that's what she was yelling at them for like 15 minutes. And she's quite
if
proud.
Linda's pointing out, just listen to her.
Yeah. And Linda was like, I had my back to them, and she was facing them, so she could see it, and I could just hear them, bickering, and but it was very, very funny.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, Linda seems like the sort of Scottish sort of anchor to the team. She's the kind of sort of like all the Americans are in town, and Linda sort of kind of keeps you all sort of Scotlandified.
Yeah, well, Linda's how we got a hold of Jim in the first place too.
Yeah.
I had no idea how I was going to reach him, and Linda's a nurse, and she said, "Oh, I went to nursing school with someone from Islay. I haven't spoken to her in years, but I'm friends with her on Facebook. Let me write to her." And like 4 hours later, I had Jim's phone number and email address.
That's Islay, isn't it? That's Islay.
So yeah, Linda and I have been friends since I was an exchange student there. Her brother and I went to university there together, and that's how I met them. And now he lives in Rochester, New York. He's a professor here.
Oh, right. Oh, interesting.
Oh,
it's funny, these wee connections, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you saw on our Burns Night thing, we had the guy read the address to a haggis. Fonzie edited this amazing video together of all the drone shots, and it was that is her brother, Linda's brother, Douglas, reading.
Was it right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I did. Well, the accent definitely wasn't New York anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, he's got an Argyle accent.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Interesting. It's good having these wee links, these wee contacts. It does a lot for you.
Yeah.
Especially in Islay. Everyone knows everybody in Islay, so you're sorted.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Well, I'll let you get to your PlayStation.
Yeah, and 36 years old. My Friday night is a PlayStation. So that's my date for the night.
I guarantee you, my son is 15 feet that way playing Minecraft right now. Although he's
And
9.
significantly younger than me.
Yeah,
I'm actually I promised my own son that I'd have a game with him as well. So yeah, that's how ridiculous my life is on a Friday night.
Do you play Minecraft?
He does, and I'll jump on with him, and we'll work together in some Minecraft building. He's far better at it than me. It's between him and David Hope, I think, on Islay for being the best ones. David,
yeah, I know he did
built the Bruichladdich replica. So Callum aspires to that.
He gave my son access to that. I know.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I think he lost access to it. There was he had to renew some server subscription or something, and he lost access to it sadly. But we'll maybe get it back at some point. But no, thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good to catch up again, and I'm looking forward to having you and the guys and Linda and all the team over to Clady again and have some drams in person, not prison-esque.
Yeah, we can curse in Polish and Gaelic, and
exactly.
I'll bring some other ones.
We'll learn some before that. Let's see how much we can learn before that. That can be our next project.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Greg. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.